I still remember the sound of the airport announcement when my life fell apart. Final boarding call. I stood there alone in a foreign country, holding two suitcases and a dead phone, while my mother-in-law and my husband were already thousands of miles away on a plane headed home. They left me behind, not by accident, not because of an emergency. They left me there on purpose. And 3 days later, I made a single phone call that destroyed every lie they had built together. At the time, I thought my marriage was strong. I was 32 years old and had been married to Ethan for almost 6 years. We lived in Chicago and from the outside looked like the perfect couple. Ethan was charming, successful, confident. His mother, Linda, loved controlling everything around her, including our marriage. I spent years trying to earn her approval. Years, nothing was ever enough. If I cooked dinner, she criticized it. If I bought gifts, she found faults. If Ethan praised me, she changed the subject. But Ethan always told me the same thing. That's just how mom is. I believed him. That was my first mistake. Then came the trip. Linda suggested a 3-week vacation in Italy. She said it would be a chance for us to bond as a family. I should have seen the warning signs, but I didn't. What happened after that changed everything. The first week wasn't terrible. We visited Rome, Florence, Venice. The pictures looked beautiful, the reality was different. Linda constantly excluded me from conversations. She whispered to Ethan when she thought I wasn't listening. Whenever I entered a room, they stopped talking. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. Then I discovered something that shocked me. One afternoon, I returned to the hotel early. Their voices were coming from the balcony. I heard Linda say, "She's making this harder than expected." I froze. Ethan answered quietly. I know, my stomach dropped. Harder than expected. What did that mean? Before I could hear more, a door slammed nearby. The conversation just ended. When I asked about it later, Ethan laughed. You misheard. I wanted to believe him. But a strange feeling settled into my chest and it wouldn't leave. A few days later, things got worse. Linda insisted we change hotels. She handled the booking herself. When we arrived, she claimed there was an issue with our reservation. Only one room was available. Guess who got separated? I spent the night alone across town. Ethan stayed at Linda's hotel. According to them, it was unavoidable. But that wasn't even the real betrayal. The next morning, I noticed something strange. My return flight details had changed. The departure date was different, so was the airline. I assumed it was a travel agency error. When I asked Ethan about it, he seemed annoyed. Stop worrying about every little thing. Every little thing. I wish that's what it had been. The final week arrived. Our vacation was ending, or at least I thought it was. The morning of our flight, Linda volunteered to handle check-in. Again, I trusted her. Again, big mistake. At the airport, Ethan and Linda disappeared for almost 40 minutes. When they returned, they looked nervous. I asked what happened. Linda smiled. Nothing important. Then boarding started. I handed my passport to the airline employee. She frowned, then typed something, then frowned again. I'm sorry, ma'am. Those 4 words changed everything. I felt my heart racing. What do you mean? The employee looked confused. Your ticket was canceled yesterday. I stared at her. Canceled? Yes, I laughed because it sounded impossible. Then I turned toward Ethan. His face had gone pale. Linda looked away, and suddenly I knew. I knew someone had canceled my ticket. Someone standing right beside me. The employee continued speaking. Whoever made the reservation requested a refund. A refund. I looked directly at Ethan. Ethan? He couldn't meet my eyes. That's when panic became certainty. Linda grabbed Ethan's arm. We need to board. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. We? Ethan swallowed. His voice barely worked. I'll call you when we land. I felt like the world stopped moving. You are leaving me here? No answer, just silence, the worst kind of answer. Then they walked away, together. and boarded the plane, leaving me completely alone. I thought that was the worst part. I was wrong. Within an hour, my credit card stopped working. Every single one. I called the bank. The representative explained that Ethan had reported several cards as compromised. Temporary security freeze. I couldn't access our shared accounts. I couldn't access our savings. I had less than $200 available in a foreign country. Alone, abandoned, I sat on a bench inside the airport and cried harder than I ever had before. But I had no idea what was coming next. The next 3 days were a nightmare. I moved into a cheap hostel. I borrowed a charger, used airport Wi-Fi, and tried contacting Ethan. Nothing. No calls, no texts, no explanations. Then a message finally arrived. One sentence. We need some space, space. After abandoning me in another country, I felt sick. But something about the message bothered me. It didn't sound like Ethan. It sounded like Linda. Then I noticed something else. The message came from Ethan's email, not his phone. That's when a terrible possibility entered my mind. What if Ethan wasn't making the decisions? What if Linda was? I needed answers, so I started digging, and what I found changed everything. While trying to access our financial records, I noticed several large transfers. Money had been moving for months. Thousands of dollars, sometimes tens of thousands. The destination? An account I didn't recognize. At first, I assumed it belonged to Linda, but I was wrong. It belonged to a woman named Rachel, a woman I had never heard of. My hands started shaking. Who was Rachel? The answer came quickly. Rachel wasn't just receiving money. She was living with my husband. For almost a year, I couldn't breathe. The evidence was everywhere. Party records, UST bills, social media photos, head accounts. My husband had another life, another relationship, another home. And Linda knew everything. She had helped him hide it. Suddenly, the trip made sense. The whispers, the secrecy, the canceled ticket. They weren't trying to get rid of me temporarily. They were trying to remove me permanently. They expected me to return eventually, broken, confused, willing to accept whatever explanation they gave, but they underestimated me. That was their biggest mistake. I stopped crying, stopped begging, stopped asking why. Instead, I started planning. And my revenge began with a single phone call. The first person I called wasn't a friend, it wasn't family. It was a lawyer, a very good lawyer. The moment she heard my story, she became interested. The moment she saw my evidence, she became excited. Because what Ethan and Linda had done wasn't just cruel, it was legally dangerous. Extremely dangerous. The lawyer uncovered even more. Ethan had been moving marital assets, hiding income, transferring funds, using fake explanations on tax documents. Every discovery made things worse for him and better for me. But I wasn't finished, not even close. The next phone call went to Rachel. She answered after 2 rings. I introduced myself, silence, then a nervous laugh. She thought I was joking. Until I started mentioning dates, ARAs, financial transfers. Then the laughter disappeared, because Rachel didn't know about me. She believed Ethan was divorced. Completely divorced. Linda had told her that story personally. The silence on the line lasted almost 30 seconds. Then Rachel whispered one sentence. Oh my God. What happened after that changed everything. Rachel was furious. Not at me, at Ethan, at Linda, at all the lies. She immediately agreed to cooperate. She provided messages, memes as photos, records, evidence I never could have obtained alone. The case against Ethan became impossible to deny, but I still wasn't ready to strike. I wanted the truth exposed publicly, and I got my chance sooner than expected. A month later, Ethan hosted a major corporate event. Hundreds of guests, executives, investors, clients. His career depended on that night. He loved appearances, loved reputation, loved pretending to be the perfect man. I decided to help him reveal his real self, legally, carefully, strategically. My lawyer filed documents that morning. Official documents, financial disclosures. Fraud investigations at freezes. The timing was perfect. Halfway through the event, Ethan received notification after notification. His smile disappeared, then his confidence, then his composure. Several executives noticed him. Questions started spreading, rumors followed, but that wasn't even the real damage because Rachel arrived in person and she wasn't alone. I arrived too. The room became silent. People recognized me immediately. After all, I was still Ethan's legal wife, the wife many guests didn't even know existed. Rachel stood beside me, the other woman. The woman who had been deceived just as badly as I had. The look on Ethan's face was unforgettable. Pure terror. Linda wasn't there. But she felt the impact soon enough. Rachel calmly explained her side. I explained mine. Nobody yelled. Nobody screamed. The facts were enough. Facts always hit harder than drama. Within 20 minutes, the entire room knew who Ethan really was. A liar, a cheat, a fraud. A man who abandoned his wife in another country while secretly funding a second life. The event ended early, very early. I thought that would be the most satisfying moment. I was wrong. The divorce proceedings were even better. Months of evidence surfaced. Every hidden account, every transfer, every lie. Judges don't appreciate deception, especially financial deception. Neither do forensic accountants. The truth came out piece by piece. And every piece hurt Ethan. The court awarded me a significant settlement. More than Ethan expected, more than Linda thought possible. But money wasn't the best part. The best part was watching them face consequences they never imagined. Linda had spent years controlling people, manipulating situations, creating stories. Now none of it worked. Because facts don't care about manipulation. Eventually, Ethan tried contacting me repeatedly. Voicemails, mounds, letters. One message stood out. I made a mistake. A mistake. As if abandoning your wife in another country was a misunderstanding, as if building a second life was an accident, as if betrayal happened by chance. I never replied. There was nothing left to say. Then another twist appeared. One final surprise. A former colleague of Ethan contacted investigators. Apparently, Ethan's dishonesty wasn't limited to marriage. Several business practices came under review. The investigation expanded. His career suffered. His reputation collapsed. And for the first time in years, nobody could protect him, not even Linda. I heard she blamed everyone except herself. Typical. Some people never change. But I did. I changed completely. The woman abandoned at that airport disappeared. In her place stood someone stronger, someone wiser, someone who finally understood her worth. I moved to a new city, started a consulting business, built friendships I could trust, cried a life that belonged entirely to me. No manipulation, no control, no fear, just freedom. One afternoon, nearly 2 years later, I received an unexpected message. Rachel. We had stayed in touch. She sent a photo. It showed us standing together at the corporate event, the day everything changed. The caption made me smile. Best phone call I ever received. I stared at the picture for a long time because she was right. That phone call changed both our lives, not because it destroyed someone, but because it exposed the truth. And sometimes truth is the most powerful revenge of all. Looking back, I don't remember the airport as the place where my life fell apart. I remember it as the place where my real life began. The moment they left me behind, they believed they had won. They believed I was powerless, broken, defeated. But they forgot something important. When people take away your comfort, they sometimes reveal your strength. And when they left me alone in a foreign country, they accidentally gave me the opportunity to become the strongest version of myself. The greatest revenge isn't making someone suffer. It's building a life so successful, so peaceful, and so fulfilling that their betrayal no longer has power over you. And that's exactly what I did. The day they abandoned me was the day they lost everything. The day I made that phone call was the day I got my future back. And I never looked back, Years later, people still ask me if I ever forgave Ethan. The truth surprises them. I don't spend my days thinking about him anymore. For a long time, I thought forgiveness was something I owed someone else. I thought it meant calling him, accepting his apology, and pretending the damage never happened. But I learned something important. Forgiveness isn't always about reconciliation. Sometimes it's about refusing to carry someone else's mistakes on your shoulders forever. For months after the divorce, I struggled with trust. Every new friendship felt risky. Every kind gesture made me wonder if there was a hidden motive behind it. I hated that feeling. I hated that two people had managed to make me question my own judgment. But healing doesn't happen overnight. It happens one small step at a time, one honest conversation, one good decision. One peaceful morning when you realize you haven't thought about the betrayal all day. And then something unexpected happened. 3 years after that airport incident, I was invited to speak at a women's leadership conference. The organizers had heard my story through mutual contacts. They wanted me to talk about resilience, rebuilding, and finding strength after betrayal. At first, I almost declined. Standing on a stage and discussing the worst period of my life sounded terrifying, but something told me to say yes. The conference hall was packed. Hundreds of people filled the seats. As I looked across the audience, I noticed tears in several eyes while I shared my story, not because they felt sorry for me, because they recognized parts of themselves in it, different circumstances, different betrayals, but the same pain and the same struggle to move forward. After the event, dozens of people approached me. One woman hugged me and said, "Your story gave me courage." Another whispered, "I thought I was alone." I drove home that night feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. All the pain I endured wasn't meaningless. It had become something that could help someone else. As I pulled into my driveway, I looked at the home I had built, the business I had grown, and the peaceful life I had created from the ruins of my old one. Um, Then I remembered that terrified woman sitting alone in a foreign airport with 2 suitcases and a broken heart. If I could speak to her now, I would tell her one thing. The people who betray you don't get to decide how your story ends. They only create a chapter. You write the ending, and sometimes the ending becomes more beautiful than anything you ever imagined. Because the greatest comeback isn't revenge. It's becoming so strong that the people who tried to break you become nothing more than a distant memory. And that, more than any courtroom victory or financial settlement, was my real triumph.